Okay, so Rusty, for the record, state your name.
For the record, Jay, you recording? Oh, here we go. My name is Kermit Simpson Jr. Just let you know that it wasn't my fault. I am a junior, and I was saving grace was Rusty, nicknamed Rusty. Thank you, Grandma. Reva James gave me that name, and yeah, that's who I am, son of Ada James and Kermit Simpson Sr.
No middle name?
No middle name.
Really?
Paul has a middle name, Mike has a middle name, Lynette has a middle name now. I'm Kermit Jr.
When were you born?
When? August
Yes.
24th, 1955.
Leo in the house.
No,
he's a
Wait, you said
Virgo.
August?
He said August. He's a
August
Virgo.
24th.
Yeah,
we share a
24th.
birthday.
You said the 4th.
That's
Okay.
right. Him and Jay are same day.
Yeah. I thought
All
you
of
said
y'all
the 4th.
astrology people.
And I'm the day after.
The 4th is a Leo.
All of you astrology people, I'm a Leo on the cusp. I'm a Virgo on the cusp of Leo under a Scorpio moon. I have no idea what that means.
Scorpio. Very interesting people.
Where
Very
were you?
interesting people.
Where were you born?
I was born in Fordham Hospital, Bronx, New York. Now defunct Fordham Hospital in Bronx.
Oh, okay. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Throgs Neck in the Bronx, right in between the Whitestone Bridge and the Throgs Neck Bridge. It was Throgs Neck, surrounded by Italians, Irish, immigrants and families. And we were in this one little project. And as far as the projects go in New York City and housing projects, I can actually say we had the best, most mystical project in New York. It was almost like living in the country. I can't speak for everybody else because I didn't live everywhere else. I visited everywhere else. I didn't get the same flavor I got from Throgs Neck. It was just that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It was the epitome there. And I had the best of both worlds because, I was just thinking about all of that. And I had to say to myself, the blessings that I had from that. God has blessed me in this life so well, and he's always intervened when something bad was going to happen. And it started from day one because I had two families. I not only had my family and I had the best family, I had another family. It was just a Pulley family. And all of y'all. It was just the most unique situation a child could have growing up in Throgs Neck. The atmosphere, the people, how the people were, how close everybody was, and to have two families. I mean, it was the greatest.
I tend to remember, because we came to your house quite a bit, growing up. I tend to remember two different buildings. Was it two different buildings that you lived in, or?
Oh yeah. We lived on 2798 Randall Avenue, which was like, as soon as you come into the project off the highway, our building was right there, and you didn't have to go any further. Aunt Lizzie lived like in the middle of the project. And we lived there for a lot of years. I was a preteen, I was a teenager when we moved from there to the middle of the project, which they had brand new buildings.
Right, they had taller, they were taller. That's correct.
That was all open field.
Okay.
When I would live all open, I used to fly my kite out there and stuff. See, I was in the project. You could fly kites. You went ice skating, and because there was swamps all around, and a pond that you ice skate on. We had
Remember those days?
Yeah.
The pond.
Yeah. We made our own scooters.
I said, not necessarily the safest thing to do, but we
didn't
know.
It's not the safest thing at all, especially in the swamp, but they did it anyway. And they had never had any casualties or anything like that. We made our own scooters and skateboards, and we were very innovative, and it was magic. To me, it was magic. You know, it was paradise. We never had any problems, and if we had any problems, they didn't come until later. You know, when we were teenagers, and even when we had those problems, they were fixed immediately. We were friends. It was just no problems whatsoever that I could think of. Let me turn that off. You could just jump off it. Nobody needs money.
Phone and then like he's got a call.
No, this is all for the wife.
Was that a house phone?
That's the house phone, yeah.
They
People
still
still
make
have house
those?
phones?
Yeah, that's the house.
And that's answering machine?
Yes. Yeah. We're old school, Ken. I just gave
Sound
you
like
my
an
birthday.
answering
I
machine,
just gave you my birthday.
I know, but an answering machine? I thought everybody used voicemail now.
What happens if that breaks? Is there a place you can go get it fixed or get it
Stop it down. You know, we got both lines. We were thinking about getting rid of it, but there's just too much business we got on. So,
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So here's another thing I remember about where you all lived in Throgs Neck. I always remember it because it was so different than my neighborhood in the suburbs in New Jersey, where when you came in, if you looked up, you saw a whole bunch of sneakers thrown over the telephone wires everywhere.
you didn't see
Jersey,
that.
Kevin?
Huh?
You didn't have that in Jersey?
No, we did not have that in Jersey.
No, they had sushi and things like that, and they didn't have things over the pole. They just went to each other's houses, had little barbecues and stuff. They were very, very like that.
Hey.
No, I don't know. When you came to Throgs Neck, you really didn't see that much. We've seen a few. There wasn't any rifts or things like that in Throgs Neck until my later junior high school, pre-high school days. Didn't have any of that. There was nothing like that. Throgs Neck was just a very peaceful, wonderful place to grow up until I remember the day it changed. Ronnie and I were going up to the hobby shop. We like to build models and things like that. And we go up to the hobby shop and we saw our white friends from school. Seen them up there. We were friends in school. Pitch cards, baseball cards, all kinds of stuff. And they, we knew them. They say, hey, Sal or whoever, hey, how y'all doing? They said, what are you niggas doing up here? It happened overnight.
Wow.
Overnight. And Ronnie and I were in shock. And we didn't get mad. We were more hurt and confused by what was that all about? And from that moment on, things changed. But it didn't happen until we got a little older. Up until then, it was just Throgs Neck, and it was great.
So I have a question. Do you remember Cliff Myers, Cliff and Connie Myers?
Don't remember them.
Because they lived in the Bronx, right off of Gun Hill Road. Blanche Dingle, you knew, right?
Blanche, I knew. See, my memory of people I interacted with and families I interacted with, and that my mother took us to on a regular basis. Blanche, Minnie, all of them. We saw them mostly at
family reunions. Right.
And most of the reunions was at Grandma's house in Queens. She had a big yard. If you go there now, somebody put a house on that yard. That's how big it was. She had the most property on that block. And we have barbecues and go crazy out there. And that's how everybody gathered up. I was so young, my mother they're grown-ups. I'm into the cousins. I'm
Right.
into Greg.
Well,
I'm
you know
into
why I asked? Because I was just curious to see who in the family, because there was so many cousins that lived in the Bronx, like we we would go to like all of my mother's sisters and brothers' houses, and so we would go in the Bronx to visit Uncle Cliff, or Lorraine, who lived in the Bronx at the time. And so I was just wondering, like, what family members' houses did you go to a lot, if any, in the Bronx?
In the Bronx, we went to, wow, in the Bronx. That's a good question, because we didn't go to many too many.
Well, Uncle
When
Nate.
we went to Uncle Nate's house a lot. We
Mhm.
went to Aunt B's house a lot. When you guys lived on Webster Avenue, we went there a couple. That's when you guys lived. I don't think it was Webster Avenue. You and Uncle Nate's family lived right above each other.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, well, you weren't there, right? You
No,
weren't
I
there.
wasn't there.
They used to communicate by banging on the pipes.
That was on I want to say Vice Avenue.
Yeah, around that area.
Yeah, it was Vice Avenue.
They used to bang on the pipes to talk to each other. Hey, what are you doing up there? Can you bring this down? Or whatever, like that. It was like that was going on.
Mhm.
I was always at Aunt Lizzie's house. I don't remember too many people in the Bronx other than Uncle Nate and Aunt B that we really visited. Most of the people we visited from my memory were mostly Queens. Aunt Allie, Uncle Claude, Uncle Coon, and of course Grandma. It was always in
What
that
about Uncle Floyd?
Huh?
Uncle Floyd and Florine?
Yeah, for Floyd used to come by at Grandma's house a lot. He was always fixing things.
Always.
Always.
Used to come.
So she would bring him, she'd call him to fix things, and I would see them. And Allie was bigger than life to me.
Yeah. That was
Every time we saw Aunt Allie, she had another Cadillac.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Allie, can we sit in your car? Can we sit in your car? All right, go ahead. Sit in the car. We just sit in the car.
So I think there was a competition between Aunt Allie, my mother, Aunt Blanche, and Aunt Vi, and they would swap out their Cadillacs every
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was, who's gonna get the nicest Cadillac, and so it was like at least every 2-3 years or so, everybody's got a new Cadillac. Yeah, so I think there was some underlying competition going on.
And Allie's energy was like, it would light up the whole house when she showed up. And I remember the one time she showed up in a convertible. Oh, that blew our mind. She had a convertible. Oh no, we sat in there until the time she got there, till the time she left, we were sitting in that car. So most of the people was in Uncle Claude's house. That was the first color TV I ever saw in my life, was at Uncle Claude's.
Wow.
Paul and I were like amazed. We saw the NBC Peacock with the colors and everything. It blew our minds, and we were like, oh man, this is crazy. But
what was your relationship like with your siblings growing up?
My siblings. Let's start with Mike. Mike was bigger than life to me. He was my hero. He was my hero. He was the biggest pain in the butt. He was smart. I depended on him. I followed him. I tried to emulate him all the time. I wore his clothes and everything. Every time he would get in trouble with my mother, though, he'd come in the room and beat me up. We had bunk beds. Paul was on the bottom bunk. I was on the top bunk. Mike was over here in his own bed. And he'd come in while me getting these, and he'd just look at me and boom, because I was on the top bunk. I was an easy target. Boom. I said, oh, why you hit me? Shut up. But he was, I followed. He was the best dresser. He was he was the greatest ball player I've ever seen. And that's when I didn't even know about basketball till we started watching on TV, and then I went out to the park to see him play. And Mike was on his way to going to pros. He was pro. I can say, if you know basketball, I'd say his basketball game was a comparison of Magic Johnson and Dr. J. That's how Mike played. He could pass the ball like nobody's business. He had a handle and he could jump through the roof, but he would never dunk. He would just play you pretty. It was amazing to watch. I used to wear his name on the side of my sneakers. And he was the captain of the team in junior high school. I used to wear his jacket, say Captain Mitch. I'd do everything, you know. But he was a pain in the butt. He would hit me and then he babysit us, and we had this little organ, you know. He had this organ, and we'd play this little organ and make me and Paul sit there while he played the organ and recited the Gettysburg Address. That's why I know some of the Gettysburg Address to this day. And it, 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth to the top. And me and Paul's like, yeah, Mike, go ahead. Until after the 17th time, we were like, all right, we're tired of this now. But he would make us sit there and listen to it. But my brother is, I've watched him through adversity when he had his car accident. And I just recently listened to that interview with him. And when he got to that part, I had to walk out the room because that was a trying time for the whole family when he had that accident. A lot of us almost could have went to jail during that period of time because we were looking for this dude. But if you could actually play a Rocky theme to what Mike did when he came home. I remember when he first came home, he just talked. He talked a lot because his brain was in a different angle in his head. And he was going through some changes as his brain was getting back to normal. And he would talk, but I was so happy to have him home. I sat up all night and just listened to him. And I talked to him and I'd saved up with him. And then Donna will come by and take him out, and late at night when nobody was around, and walk him through the project and get his legs back. And then I'd wake up, sometimes I wake up with my eyes open and Mike is trying to do sit-ups. Then I wake up again and he's doing push-ups. And then I wake up again, he's doing all of this stuff to get him back. Within a year or two time, Mike was playing ball again. Mm-hmm. You know, he was never the same ball player he was. His career was over, but he was still somebody you had to deal with. Mm-hmm. He just wasn't the same Mitch, you know. He was a different guy. He was an actor. He was a dresser. He was a fly guy now, you know. So, you know, it was just it was a different Mike. He had lost a step or two, but I was just grateful that he was still here because we almost lost him, you know. And Paul, let me skip Paul for a second and go to Lynette. Let me get to Paul because Paul, it's a lot with Paul. Lynette was the best surprise in my life. We had a sister. It was always three of us, and we had a sister. And she was like a little China doll coming in the house, and I was so protective of her from day one. And as she was growing up, I used to always sneak up on her and scare her. I used to like to mess with her and do things with her. She was the best. And the one thing about it is that she was born, she walked on her toes. The doctor said that she had tight hamstrings, which is not a bad thing to me. You know, she was the fastest thing in the house. You couldn't catch her. She was always on her toes. Woo, 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 woo. But my mother felt that this had to be corrected. And this went through a series of operations and torturous operations for my sister. Braces, wheelchairs, casts up to her hip, a series of operations that she had to go through to correct this. The medicine of the times just wasn't right for her. It tortured her, but I've never seen her cry. I've never seen my sister complain, cry about any of that. If she did it in private. She never let us see it. She always had a positive attitude. She always was pushing forward. I used to get her in the wheelchair and ride her around Throg's Neck and just, you know, around the park and everything, just so she can get out and get some air. Because she had a cast from her hip down to her toes. And I would do these things, and I was always protective of it. My mother there was a story, this kid was bothering her and her friends. And I was in the house looking at TV, and I was, oh, Ma, they all come in the house, Ma, this boy's bothering us, and this and that and that and this. and I'm watching TV. My mother always, she loved this story. She always told me about it. And I'm watching TV and I'm being annoyed because I'm trying to watch TV. Leave, will y'all be quiet? I said, oh. Got up and I said, who's bothering you? This boy downstairs bothering me. I said, where is he? Come on in. And they all go downstairs. I go downstairs. My mother goes to the window and she's looking at the window. And I said, who is he? Tim. And I said, and he said, but I, and that's all he got out of his mouth. I picked him up and threw him into the bushes. And my mother said, oh my God, she said, all she saw was arms and legs going into the bushes. And for me, out of Mike and Paul, I had the shortest fuse. I was not taking any shorts when it came to Lynette. After everything she's gone through, no. I'm not having it. And I went back upstairs. And my mother said, Rusty, what if he has a big brother? I said, I'm not worried if he got a big brother. His father maybe, but not a big brother. I went back in the house. She got a kick out of that for years. You know, but Lynette is she's the bravest person I know. She's done things that doctors said she would never do. School, everything. She's bright, she's smart, she's worked all her life. They said that she'd never be able to do this and do that, but Lynette proved them all liars. And she did what she had to do. They said she couldn't have a child. She's got a real man walking around here today. You know, and she drives. Those legs, she worked, those tired legs got her everywhere. Now she's in Texas and she's still working on herself. She still wants to work. And she still had a series of operations. Lynette doesn't give up. She's my hero. And as far as Paul, I have to say Paul and I are the closest. It all started when Paul met this guy. This is where a movie of my life begins. He met this guy in the park. This guy used to live in the middle of the projects and he moved to Randall Avenue. And we had these corrals. They were like a maze. You just, kids, you walk through them, you try to find your way through it and get to the other side. Well, he met this kid that was walking on top of them. And he was walking on top of them real fast. And his name was Vernon Wayne Stewart. And Paul came home and told me about this guy. I said, really? We started getting friends, becoming friends. Paul and him were very, very good friends. They became childhood friends, men from Uncle, you know, spies. They were spies. They used to get attaché cases and they would grew up. Then they became militants. And they were not, I'm not standing up for the flag, you know, because civil rights, and I'm not standing up for the flag. Parents had to be called in, but they used to have block fights with other kids, and they were smart. They were SP students. They were very smart, intelligent kids. Paul, very intelligent. Vernon, very intelligent. You know, one day they had a block fight with another block, just kids, just arguing, and so they went these bushes. We had big bushes, you know, the bushes in the projects, and everybody we go through the bushes. And Paul made a trap with some string and something else, a rubber band, and a hammer tip. And he made this thing, a booby trap for these kids. And Vernon said, "You said it's gonna work?" Yeah. So the kids are coming in and they all in the bushes looking for them. And Vernon and Paul got out of the bushes and sat on the bench, and all of a sudden you hear, ah! The trap worked. And they looked at each other like, wow, this is great. But Vernon, we talked about Vernon because you can't talk about us without talking about Vernon Stewart. Vernon Stewart, if you ever go to a family reunion and we introduce you to one of the Stewarts, you treat them as family. They are family. They are us. They are everything about us. They have our best interest at heart. They would die for us. Stewarts we love. These Stewarts were one of the most intelligent families you could ever want to be. It's like one of those things, I know you probably had some friends, you go in their house, you can't have step with these people. They're fast. Don't go in there half stepping because the snaps are coming like this. And if you're slow, you'll get snapped on and they'll dismiss you. You know, those are who the Stewarts were. Vernon Stewart, was like Paul, very smart. He got into music and they started singing and playing instruments. And throughout the years, he got better and better and better at it. And it got to the point where there wasn't an instrument that Vernon couldn't play. And if he couldn't play, give him 20 minutes.
Hmm.
He had an octave voice that could sing in any octave you wanted to sing. He had a book of songs. He's a songwriter. And him and Paul became very close, and they started singing. They started singing groups and everything, and going to talent shows and festivals and things like that. And I was like, I was a little jealous, let's look at Paul, what Paul's doing, and I used to follow him around a lot. Not too much. I didn't want to be, I'm the older brother. I didn't want to, I was doing my own thing and everything. I started getting good at basketball and things like that. And that's another thing, the type of person I was. And, there's a lot of things I was really good at. But I watched Paul. We're talking about Paul right now, and I watched Paul and him and Vernon get good. And they got to the point where they wound up at the Apollo Theater. They did the Harlem Cultural Festival. Remember the Harlem Cultural Festival back in the day? And they wound up there. All of New York is out there. There's an amphitheater in Central Park. In Central Park, the Harlem Cultural Festival. And they got a part to go into Harlem Cultural Festival. It was televised and everything. And I remember they were wearing all white. And they were called the chaperones then. And they were wearing all white. And they waited all day to get on. And by the time they called them, all right, we're going to get the chaperones up. They had ice cream stains on their stuff. They were a mess. But they got out there.
It looked like they needed some chaperones.
Yeah, right? They needed some. They really did. They got out there and they sang, Get Ready by the Temptations. They sang Cloud Nine and Get Ready by the Temptations. Wore everybody out. Matter of fact, they sang Get Ready. The crowd made them come back. That's how good they were. They wound up, the group changed a little bit. It was always Paul and Vernon. Paul and Vernon were the mainstays. They wound up with a different group and they named themselves the Final Seconds. And they wound up, they do an amateur night at the Apollo. They were there for 9 weeks straight. They were tied with this one guy that was imitating Al Green. And after a while, you're at the Apollo, they're supposed to give you your name on the marquee and give you a show. Never happened. The lead singer got offered a contract for Motown now, but he didn't take it because he didn't want to leave his boys, which was a dumb thing to do. You could have got there and brought them back in later. But they were young. And they always had some crazy, not the best management. Yeah, Vernon's godfather's a manager. He was a great guy. To this day, he's a great guy. I love Gil. But, as managers go. But that's how our life, a lot of our adventures in this life, my adventures in this life, was based on a lot of Vernon Wayne Stewart's coattails and where he took us with his talent. He had a lot of flaws. He always had to have an entourage around him. He had a confidence problem. He wanted to be the man, but he was shy. He was basically a shy. I didn't realize until later on just where his spot was in the music business. But by that time, there was too much damage done. But our lives were so enriched by that man. I give all due. I was talking to Paul today about that. He said, yeah, I can't argue with that. A lot of our adventures have revolved around Vernon Wayne Stewart and the music business. Wish you would have knew you, cuz during that time, you could have set us on the right path. But there's a lot of things, and what I was doing during that time, I had my own demons, that I had to wrestle with. And that came from, parents had a lot of issues with that. That name haunted me. Not the name itself, but the meaning behind that name.
Uniquely, well, maybe not so uniquely, but could be. You had three parents. Tell us about your three parents.
I don't know about three parents.
I wanted you to go that way.
Yeah, I had my father, Kermit Simpson Sr. He had issues. That man had issues. I looked up to him, but he wasn't there. He was a no-show. He was there and then he wasn't there. I remember him, like I said, remember when I asked you that question, the first thought of my head about life, this life, and then I'm in the life, was me sitting in a box in the kitchen. My mother is cooking. My father is sitting over here, and Mickey and Ivana's daughter is sitting on the other side. And there's a record player in the middle of the table, and it's playing Sam Cooke, You Send Me. I remembered that. And when I said that to my mother, she said, that's impossible. No way you can remember that. I said, what? She said, you was only like two and a half. See, I remember I was sitting on the floor. I remember that. And I remember my father. My father was a big guy. He walked with a straight leg. He got shot in Korea. He was from Louisiana, but on my birth certificate said he's from New Jersey. I remember turmoil in the house with her, my mother, and my father. But the most vivid memory I have of him was the day he left us. I was holding on to his leg. He was dragging me on the floor, and I was begging him not to go. And he left.
How old were you?
I was like 5, 6. I had just started kindergarten, as a matter of fact, in first grade. And I remember because I was a sponge. I wanted to learn. I loved learning. Oh, I came home and taught Paul how to read before he got to school. I taught him how to read. My mother said I was a chameleon. I could adapt to anything. And I was brilliant. But when he left, I didn't care anymore. I became the child, Paul and Mike. Paul, yes, ma. Lynette, yes, ma. Mike, yes, ma. Me, why? I was that one, you know, and I was angry. I didn't know how angry I was just angry. I was envious of other families and their fathers and the family structure and what they had, and how come my father didn't want me? And how can I be made? And you know, especially when you do something bad, or mom got it, you know, mom had a few drinks or something, and she sit down and she talking to you in that mode and saying, you know, talking about your father and how bad he is and how bad he treated him. And then in the same breath, you're just like your father. You know, so I was angry. And he only came around every once in a while, you know. But there was something about fatherhood. Like one time I was playing basketball in the park with my friends. And all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, he shows up. And he's on the other side of the fence. And I'm playing ball and I'm looking. They said, my friend said, yo, who's that dude? That's my father. That's your dad, man? Yeah. So we're still playing. He's just looking. And somebody did something and I, you know, bad call or something, and I cursed. And they all started laughing because I cursed in front of my father. And I never feared anybody. And I had Uncle Pulley. Uncle Pulley was a dude that everybody feared. I didn't fear anybody. I didn't fear my mother. I didn't fear anybody. But when I cursed, I turned around. He's the only man I feared, because I knew in my mind, in my crazy little young mind, he was the only one that had the right to put his hands on me, and I couldn't do nothing about it. And anybody else, I'd swing back. But he told me, he said, come here. And I went around to the other side. He said, look, I'm going over to your aunt's house. That's where you meet me. That's where we always met him, because him and Ma had a thing where we met him at Aunt Lizzie's house. He said, come on over there when you finish. I said, all right. He said, and watch your mouth. I said, okay. I had respect for him, even though I had anger for him. I had respect for him. And it was tearing my head up. Tore my head up for years, until I was a man, had a child. It stayed with me. You know, that was another story. You know, but you know, that was dad. That was my dad. I call him dad. My mother, my father, I call it Joe Brown. Joe Brown was my father. And to this day, and I believe in God, and his son and the Bible. But in this life, other than Jesus Christ, he's the greatest man I'll ever know. Joe Brown. God sent him to us, specifically for us. And every single person that's on here that know, you read, Kevin, Jay, and Derek would agree with me. He's the most kindest person you ever want to meet in this life. If you're stuck on a road in the middle of the night and it's snowing and you got a bad tire, his car is the one that's going to stop and help and give you his spare and have you go wherever you got to go. That's who he was. An angel, a complete angel. There is not a bad word anybody could ever say about that man.
What I remember about him as a kid, and I was a little kid, he used to come down to my level. Yeah. He used to come down and he would be there talking to you at your level. Yeah. And, you know, not a lot of adults did that.
Yeah.
And that was meaningful. And he was so genuine. Just a beautiful man.
Without him, I would know who police are. Without him, I would know what trouble really was. I am the man I am today because of him. I'm the father I am today because of him. And partly because of my father too, because I always said to myself, I'm not going to be that like him. But Joe Brown taught me how to be a man. And I can't thank him more. Every dream I have anytime I dream about him, it's the most calmest dream I ever had. You know, it's so weird. And he's the greatest man, you know. And as far as Mom, y'all gonna have to excuse me for a second because I got to do something, but I'm gonna get to Mom. 1 second. Put it on pause, Jay. Yeah, where was I? Mom, right?
Yep.
Mom, Ada James Simpson Brown was Ada Brown. But out of 9 children, and every single one of my uncles and aunts are special people with special gifts that affected my life in the best way. But I have to say, we hit the lotto with Mom. Mom she was a real aunt. She was a real mom, a real friend, a real wife, with all her flaws and everything. Ada was pure. She was pure. She was real, honest to a fault, honest to the point where she'll hurt your feelings, but she's gonna tell you the truth. She's gonna tell you the truth. She was a storyteller. I learned a lot about the family through her. I know a lot about all my uncles, all my aunts, because of her. She had history, the family history in her head, like nobody's business. I learned a lot about our family, and I'm so proud of our family, you know. But she was something. I used to sit down and just talk to Mom, and she would just tell me about everything, you know. And she was supposed to be a writer. She wrote stories when she was young, and stories to the point whereas kids in the school were scammering for her books. She used to actually have books, and they would read her books. She used to write stories so good. The seniors, she was a little junior or a sophomore, and the seniors had her around so they can read her stories. And she was on her way to becoming a writer, but her honesty had messed her up. One day she had gotten in trouble because she wasn't paying attention in school, and teacher called home, the school called home to grandma. And by the time my grandma got to Mars, she said, "Why is that teacher calling the school?" And the one day Ma should have lied, the one time she should have lied, she didn't. She said, I was just in the back writing one of my stories. She said, really? And she went and got my mother had a chest with all her stories in it. She took all her stories and threw them in the furnace. And it killed her joy for writing from that point on. Yeah.
You know, I remember your mother's smile. You know,
Yeah.
I think that our family, you know, when they were giving out smiles before everybody was born, I think our family definitely got an abundance.
Yes, because you got one, you have one.
And,
You have a great
I remembered even if she was just quiet and, you know, wasn't laughing or talking, she just had this smile that was still just there.
Yeah.
I remember that plainly about your mother. It's kind of interesting.
She had the most compassion. The saying is better to give than to receive. That was her house.
Mhm.
She'd give away everything, just so you know, so long as somebody else is happy. She'd help anybody, you know. Now there was two sides to her, you know, like anybody else. Nobody's perfect here. There was two sides, and Derek knows, and Kev knows. You know, there was Ada, and then there was Kit. Ada and Kit were two completely different people. Am I lying? You could actually tell when when my mother had a few. Now she couldn't drink real hard alcohol. She tried that for years. It never worked out. She'd always hurt herself or something, get in trouble. Something would happen. So she tried beer. So she'd have to drink abundance of that. Mm-hmm. And she said, you know what vitamins in beer? I said, what? She said, vitamin P. I said, oh, here we go.
Hey, didn't Allie used to drink beer a lot?
Yeah, they all drank beer. Yeah, but my mother, she'd have to get 8 cans of beer, and you had to get Budweiser, which is the hardest stuff you. Mm-hmm. But and you could see Derek, am I lying? No. Ada, when you see Ada, she's like you described her. Nice, calm, beautiful smile, level-headed and everything. But when she became Kit, her face, everything changed. Circles around her eyes, dark circles around her eyes. The expression got snarly. She had a snarl on her face. Ada would help you, love you, coddle you. Kit will take your life in a second. It was an alter ego, and there was nothing she could do about it. Don't go to the
table before washing your hands.
Yes. Don't do anything out of pocket. Yeah. You know, she used to sit, and that's how I learned a lot about the family. She would sit me down on the side of the bed, and when she was angry, and especially with my father, and give me all this propaganda about Dad. But then there were other times when she would just talk about family. She was in a lot of pain. From my father, the history, that alcohol would make her get very melancholy and reminisce too much. She had to stretch forward. She just couldn't. She was stuck in the past a lot when she drank, and it would just make her very sad, even though she had the best man she could possibly have in Joe Brown, and she knew it. But when you drink, what can you do? She never got too violent or anything like that, except for the time she had to fight with Aunt Luella in Grandma's house. That was epic. They rolled down the stairs and everything. It was crazy. I remember that one. But Aunt Luella was no joke either. Well, she could scrap. But Ma was, she's the best. And I used to give her problems. Like I said, I was the problem child. One time I was cutting out of school. I was doing all of this stuff. One time she said, look, I'm coming up to that school. You better be there. I'm talking to your guidance counselor. I said, yeah, Ma, yeah, all right. She came up to the school. I forgot she was coming. and cut.
Were you there or you weren't even there?
I wasn't there. She abruptly took me out of Adelaide Stevenson and I went straight to Alfred E. Smith, all boys school. Which was your father's school, Kev? That was your father's school. I just had problems. I had a problem with authority, but I was so talented. I was playing ball I could jump through the roof. I was dunking over people 6'10" and up. And I was a short guy. I was only 6'3". I had a lot of talent. Coaches wanted me to play. I didn't want to listen to anybody. Don't tell me how to play ball. I already know how to play ball. Don't tell me this. I already know that. I know. Rebel without a clue. That's where I was. And but Mom put up with a lot of that, and she helped. And she never left my side. She gave me tough love, but she never left my side. She was the epitome of mother. And we all have them. We all have them. You know, we come from good stock. We come from that kind of stock. That's why we're here now. We come from that kind of stock.
It's interesting because now you have more families just kind of, back in the day, you wouldn't even mention anybody going to therapy or getting help or any childhood traumas or, discussing. There were certain things that you just didn't know it as a child because it just wasn't discussed in front of you, So it would have been very interesting to see what would have happened had we had those kind of conversations and, access to, and it wouldn't have been a stigma to say, hey, I'm going to go get help or I'm going to, talk to somebody. So
I really wish I would have had that too. And I really needed it. I was the one kid that needed that third party intervention because I wasn't listening to everything. Everything was wah, 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 but I had all of this talent. Getting back, it stemmed, when I left high school. I'll never forget the day I left high school. It was the first time I ever tried. I used to play ball so much. I used to always cut out school. Now, I even went to Paul's school. I tried out for Paul's school's basketball team, art and design. I didn't even go to the school. And I was just sitting there watching them practice for the battle. They had tryouts. And I was just sitting there waiting for Paul and them to come out, Paul and Vernon to come out of school. Because art and design was just open like that. You just go into school and I'm just looking. Like I said, all right, once you, and on the court next. I said, not that, no, I'm not going to turn down a game. I got on the court and I put Paul's name on the list on the thing. And I started to play. Now, this is the high school of art and design. There's no ball players in the high school.
I was going to say, they have a big...
Yeah. And I started playing, and then I passed the ball to this guy and hit him in the head. And the coach said, don't pass the ball. I just want to see what you can do. He finally had a basketball play. He said, I just want to see what you can do. I said, okay. So I started playing. I dunked once. There was no dunking in school, in the high school. They said, no dunking, but keep going. Just keep going. And when it was all over and everybody was trying to see who made the team, I snuck out the side door. This guy chased ball. He chased ball around. Me and Paul were so much alike. He kept coming to Paul, you're going to play for me.
I'm like, what?
And Paul said, what are you talking about? I don't even like basketball. And Paul said, what did you do? I said, he asked me to play. I played, man. What do you want from me? But a lot of coaches, and even in Smith, I remember the day I left, it was the first time I tried out for the team. And I was making all the cuts. But then when I got my report card, because I said to myself, I'm not going to cut out of school. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I went outside. I cut out again because the seniors were playing outside, playing the sophomores and the juniors, and for Smith. And I played out there and I dunked on the two biggest guys they had on the team, seniors, and they threatened me. They said, "You coming out for the team or we're going to hurt you." I said, okay, because one of them lived in my project. I said, all right. So I went out for the team. I was making all the cuts and we got my report card. I needed sunglasses to read that report card. There was so much red on it.
Wow.
And on that day, I said, look, man, I'm going to get a job. And I went home and told Mom, I need to work. This is not working out for me. And she said, well, you ain't staying here for free. You're going to get a job. And Mike helped me get a job. He helped me to lie to get a job because I didn't know anything. He said, go in there and tell them you know everything. I'll tell you what you need to know. And go for a mailroom job and do this because Mike was working in the mailroom. He said, you do this. And I went in there and told him I knew everything. I didn't know anything. He said, because they're going to show you anyway. I said, fine. And I started working from that point on. Mike got me, I worked for this jewelry firm and it just went on from there. and finally wound up in a mailroom and for CBS. And who's working there? Bunch of guys from the projects. Even Ronnie was working there. My cousin Ronnie worked there. Ronnie, Vernon Stewart, another guy, Roger Kirkland, he was another friend of ours. Paul even worked there for half a minute. There was just an open thing. A friend of ours named Bobby Pagan, he got us all in there. And I worked for them, and that's when my music thing started, because Vernon took me to some studio one time on 166th Street and Summit Avenue. Because I was always banging on stuff. I'm always doing this, and I'm listening to them play and stuff and like that. And he said, look, man, there's a set of drums. Because Vernon, they had instruments, and he said, there's a set of drums. You're always banging on stuff, bang on that. While Vernon was trying to work out a song on the piano. And I tinkered around, and Vernon was playing. And before you knew it, I was playing drums right along with him. He said, whoa. I said, whoa. And we played. Within a year of doing that, he put me in the band. I was the drummer. And then, and after that, well, we were working in the mailroom, and we were working for years, and we had the band, and we were going to rehearsals and this and that and a bunch of things. And that's when I got introduced to drugs and all kinds of, it was drugs, sex, drugs, rock and roll. That's a real thing. And I got introduced to that. And that's when Vernon and them were really starting to take off. They had the producer, remember the song, Push, Push in the Bush? You got the dog push. They got with him, Kenny Morris. It was Kenny Morris and Patrick Annable. It was Kenny Morris that wanted to work with Vernon and Paul and the group, the Final Seconds. And they went to the studio and they did these songs that Vernon wrote. One of them was called Beat the Devil, and a couple other songs that it was really, really good. But Kenny was into cocaine and women and this and that. He was selling to the art to celebrities. So that was his thing. He wasn't looking to really get better. He had his 2 gold albums on the wall, and he was trying to live off of that. Stupid. So when Vernon took me there, he said, well, what do you think about Kenny? And here I am getting introduced to these drugs. And I was the most brilliant person in the world behind all of this. I said, well, he's every BS manager you ever had in your life wrapped into one big BS manager. And because Vernon forgot that I was around them all those years. Everything that they went through, I was there looking at it. I wasn't a part of it. I was in a group for a minute because I could sing a little bit, but then I stopped because I couldn't do the choreography. But I was always around. And then the business end of it started to seep into my head, and I was watching how everything was working. And when I told him that this guy was a bunch of nonsense, me and Vernon had a big argument, blah, blah, blah. But then later on, then I started playing drums for him. When we had that thing when I started playing drums for him, we were having rehearsals and all kinds of stuff. And we were still working in the mailroom. We're going through our things. And then one day, Vernon gets fired. But Vernon didn't care because he was singing with the Persuader. He was playing for the Persuaders. There's a thin line between love and hate. Those guys, he was playing keyboard and singing background, and Paul was singing background with them. And they had met a whole bunch of other new guys, and the band that they got together, they called themselves M Unit 1, which is called Muse Unit 1. And they were doing their thing, and I was still working in the mailroom, and then I got fired because I kept coming in late. And that was the saddest thing. I was there for 3 years. It was the saddest thing. And I remember emptying out my desk and putting everything in the box like a little poor employee. Mm-hmm. And everybody's sad around me. And Vernon comes in the door. He says, yo, man, I heard you just got fired. Don't worry about it. You're going on tour with us next week, so don't worry about it. I got you a job. I started tossing things into the box. This is Vernon. This is Vernon Stewart, my friend. Okay, our friend. He came in there when I was at my lowest time and lifted me up. And I went on tour as a roadie with the Persuaders. And we drove to Maryland. I had a car. I had a little piece of a car. And I drove them to Maryland. And I remember falling asleep behind the. I was so tired. Paul kept talking to me. Come on, just stay up and this and that. I said, okay. He kept talking to me and talking to me, and he was talking to me. My eyes were open. I know I was asleep because I didn't remember this. All I remember was the sign, "You are now in Maryland." Oh, really? How did I get here? You know. But it was that's when everything started taking off as far as the music was concerned. I remember the lead singer who sang as a thin line between love and hate. His name was Smokey. He used to call. He couldn't remember anybody's name, so he called everybody Pete. So and when he got into the room, he said, "Yo, Pete." Everybody would turn around. But on this morning, we finally got there, and he said, "Yo, Pete." He woke me up. He said, "Yo, Pete, come on, man. You got to drive me to the studio." "What studio?" I'm going to a radio place in the station. They're going to interview me. I said, "Really?" I said, "All right." Yeah, I drove him over there, and I sat back, and I was like, "Wow, look where I'm at. This is crazy." And I listened to it. He said, "Yeah, I'm down here. We're going to have a show, and this and that, and this and that, and that's one of my roadies over there. That's one of my crew over there." He said, "Hey, yeah, well, come on in here and get on the." And I was on the radio with him. These things were happening, and I was bugging out. It's happening, and I was just a roadie. It's setting up stuff, setting up the drums, setting up everything. And then when the Persuaders things left, Vernon and them got with the tenor from that group. His name was Howard Kenny. He started his own career. He went solo, and Howard Kenny went on the road, and I went on with them as a roadie and a backup drummer. They had a real drum. I was learning from this other guy because I just taught myself how to play drums. I really didn't know my craft the way I wanted to know my craft. And I wasn't playing enough. I was doing all this other stuff, but I was learning. And we went on tour. We went on tour with Warner Brothers Records. And we did the Summit in Houston. That was my first plane ride, the Summit in Houston. The Richard Pryor tour with Patti LaBelle.
Wow.
And I met Patti LaBelle. Was one of the nicest people. I don't know if you met her.
Yes, I have.
She's one of the nicest people. I don't know what your experience was with her, but she was one of the nicest people I ever met.
She was nice to me, but it was a very interesting backstage setup for her.
I can understand. It was Ashford and Simpson. We did their tour, and to this day I won't listen to an Ashford and Simpson.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I won't listen to that song. I won't listen to them.
So Rusty, tell us about Rusty the father.
The father. I'm a girl dad for life.
Wait a minute, not just the father, but the husband.
And the husband too. I was gonna get to that, but I know how much he.
Well, father came well before husband did. Believe that. I was living in Portchester. I'm at CBS. I had met Jasmine's mother while I was working at CBS, and she came in as a receptionist, and she was a fly Cosmo girl, very, very, very fly, and everybody was trying to talk to her. And I was just a little lonely mailroom guy. I said, "How am I going to have a chance?" But I said, I kept messing with her. I'd say certain things to her. I knew I was too cute for her to not pay attention to me. So I was like, I kept messing with her. And finally, one day, she bit back, and we started dating and everything. And we fell in love. And throughout the years, after I was on tour and off tour and on tour, and I got a job in some corporation, and we got together, and we got our money together, and we got an apartment in Portchester. And I had a big life lesson in that one. We were cool. We were loving each other. I remember we were so in love. None of our parents wanted us to move together. We were too young, way too young, not ready. And we were defiant. So we got our little money, and we got our little money in the apartment in Portchester. And neither one of our parents were talking to us. And I'll never forget our first Thanksgiving. We didn't have any money. And we were walking around Portchester, and all you could hear.
Where'd you go for Thanksgiving dinner?
We could hear the forks coming off everybody's plates. We could hear everybody in Portchester eating. And we were hungry, but we had our love. We had our love. And then out of the clear blue sky, we had Jasmine, and she got pregnant. And it was a shock to us that, we thought we were being careful, but we had Jasmine, and she got pregnant. And then I made a whole bunch of mistakes. Like I said, Scorpios. She was a Scorpio. She was a triple Scorpio. Don't cross a Scorpio. I didn't understand pregnancies and what women go through. And all I knew was that I was going to be a dad, and I'm going to work as hard as I can, and I'm going to work the hours I need to do so we can have this and have that. And I had the greatest of intentions, but all she can see was that I was working so hard and I wasn't paying any attention to her. And I wasn't giving her what I needed. I was coming home like, I'm so tired of, anything to eat. What do you mean nothing to eat? Don't you talk to me and this and that? I'm like, oh, wow, and we had this big blowout. And from that blowout, I made a bunch of mistakes. Being angry me. You have that attitude, whereas I don't need this. I'm not married. I can get anybody I want. How dare you treat me like this? She kicked me out of the apartment on a night because I wouldn't talk to her. And because her name was on that lease, she had every right to kick me out of that apartment, and she used it, and it hurt me. And I used that pain to hurt her back. Young, dumb, made a lot of mistakes. And we tried to get back together and get things back together. And, for the sake of Jasmine, we tried. But, in the end, it didn't work out for us, but I never stopped being a father. Jasmine was the light of my life. And she still is the light of my life. She's been with me the longest. She was my shadow. If I showed up in Throg's Neck without her, people would stop me and say, oh, hey, there's something wrong with this picture. Where is she? Because eventually Jasmine wound up living with me and Ma. I went back with Ma, and Jasmine was with me. There's a whole bunch of things that happened that how that transpired. And Jasmine was born, they said, and this is early, autistic traits. It wasn't total autism, but it was autistic traits. And nobody really knew what autism was. And she didn't want to be touched. She was in a whole other world. She was this and that. We didn't know what was going on. And we'd go to the Kennedy Center, near Jacoby, and we had to go there every day to therapy and this and that. And I was there for it. And Leslie was there for it. There's her mother. Her mother was there for it. And when all of this stuff went down, and my mother was like, I don't know about all of this, And then finally, when I had to stay home, and we had our big rift, and I took Jasmine. So she gave me Jasmine because it was just a weird thing. But I had Jasmine with us. And my mother said, I'm not treating her no different than the rest of my grandchildren. And there's nothing wrong with her. I see there's nothing wrong with her. And Jasmine wouldn't really converse with anything until one day I came home. I remember I was working security. And I came home one night and I opened the door, and all I hear was, I'm not going to be your friend until you sing. I'm not going to talk to you until you sing. And Jasmine started singing. And she sang a song. And, I see the moon sees me. God bless the moon and God bless me. She never did that before. And I stood at the door and cried. That my mother could reach her when nobody else could reach her. Even the professionals couldn't reach her like that. And my mother didn't treat her any different. And Jasmine was in special classes for an earlier part of her life. Until one day she asked me, she said, why am I in these classes? And I told her, about the autism. And she got real quiet. And then she got kind of upset. She said, I don't need to be in these classes. And from that moment on, because I didn't want to label her throughout her vocal or academic career. And Jasmine said, I don't need to be here. And she got out of there. Her grades got so good. She got mainstreamed. She got out of there. She went to high school. She went to college. They said that Jasmine would always need somebody to hold her hand through life. Jasmine has an apartment, has gone to college, has gone to business school, got her degree, did everything they said that she couldn't do. And a lot of it was because of Ada, my mother. My mother treated her like there's nothing wrong with her, and there wasn't anything wrong with her. You know, Jasmine came through with flying colors and proved everybody wrong. She wound up getting a job in the same place that they said that she'd never be able to walk. She wound up back at Rose Kennedy Center working in admissions, admitting people in there. Jasmine, I'm so proud of her. I have two other daughters, Nicolette and Lauren, from another relationship. And all girls, two more girls. Lauren is adopted, but I'm dad. I am dad. And Nikki is my biological daughter. So that came years later after I met her mother. You know, it's been a wild ride. From the music business to in between the music business and parenting, because the music business became a lot of my life. Because Vernon and I got so close, I was doing a lot as far as the music business was, trying to get his thing off the ground, and in doing that, trying to see how much off the ground I could get myself, so I didn't have to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. I really love music, and it was going back and forth with all of that, you know. I remember the day I almost got into a fight with Cuba Gooding, and Cuba Gooding Sr., not Junior. He used to sing with the Maid Ingredient. Everybody plays the fool sometimes. That was him. And we were at Kenny's house and doing our thing. And he was going solo, but he had just went back to the Maid Ingredient after his solo. And I made a stupid comment. And I said, oh, so you're going back to the Maid Ingredient? You go crawling back now. Things failed, huh? He got real mad. He got so mad. It was the wrong thing to do. To this day, Paul and them never let me live that one down. And it got heated in there. And I said, look, Vernon said, let's go, man. Let's just go. So we walked out and I got down to 57th Street and Broadway and some guy spun me around and it was Cuba. He said, look, man, everybody keeps saying things like that. And I need you to know, brother, that that's not like that. I said, look, man, I said I was sorry. I didn't mean it. It was a joke. And you just don't know. And he got in my face and then he squared up on me. And then I said, all right, that's enough of this. I squared up back. I said, what do you want to do? I said, I'm sorry. What do you want to do? We got ready to go blows and they separated us. So I never lived down the fact that I almost got into a fight with Cuba Gooding.
So wait a minute. You almost get into a fight with Cuba Gooding. What happened with you and Nick Ashford? You could have been a superstar.
Nick Ashford. What happened with Nick Ashford? We were on tour, and of course, you know, we're all on Warner Brothers Records, and I'm just a roadie. But it was exciting for us. We're in our 20s, and here we are backstage on tour. This is amazing. There was a white baby grand piano backstage, and Vernon saw it. He said, "Oh my God." He went over to the piano, he picked it up, he started playing. He said, "Oh man, you can't believe how this feels." I'm not a piano player. How does it feel? It says great. And he was sitting back there, he's playing his baby grand. And all of a sudden up the ramp comes some burgundy Rolls Royce. I'll never forget it. Burgundy Rolls Royce come up the ramp. Who gets out? Nick Ashford and Valerie Simpson. They look at each other. They say something to each other. I'll never forget. I said, look. And Valerie goes off one way. Nick comes forward toward us. I said, look, he's coming. Nick Ashford's coming. He's coming. And he's still playing the piano. He's still playing. And Nick Ashford comes in. He says, hey, fellas, how you doing? Hello, how are you? You know, trying to be as polite as ever. All our upbringing is there. We're being very polite. Yeah, you know, he said, hey, you play that pretty good. Dude, that sounds good. And Vernon says, thank you. He said, but that's my piano. Get the F off of it. Vernon said, whoa. You know, he didn't have to come out like that. You know, he could see that we were young. We have backstage passes. We're not here to, we're not some thugs out here or some, you know, juveniles messing with his stuff. Vernon put the thing down and walked off. And then later on that night, they wanted to use our equipment, some of our equipment. They didn't want us to go on, but they wanted to use some of our equipment. And we said, oh, not tonight. Now, you know, Yvette, being the first act at a show, we get the last, especially when you're the new act, we get the last sound check. So when everybody's coming in, we're still setting up, you know? And so I'm still setting up the traps and I'm doing everything. I'm doing sound check. It is so funny because that's when I found out, because I was always a spectator in you know, in concerts, watching Earth, Wind and Fire and everybody. And just watching sound checks. And all of a sudden, so usually you hear somebody playing something, the crowd goes, yeah, like the lights are on, the show's not starting. What are you getting all excited about? Because they said, Rusty, hit a tom. I had my headphones on. They said, hit a tom. Boom, boom, hit do this, hit that, play something. And I start playing and the crowd's going like the show start. The lights are still on. You're still coming in. We chill out. But it was still exciting, you know? I'm up on stage with all these people and this, you know? And they said they didn't want us to go on, but they wanted to use some of our equipment. And all I heard was, Rusty, break it down. Really? He said, yeah. I started taking everything off. So they said, well, if we ain't going on, you ain't using our stuff. We're all Warner Brothers and everything, but that's not happening here. And they said, okay, y'all can go on. You doggone right, you're going on. And but that's how, you know,
we call difficult clients.
It is. And I don't, you know, Yvette, I never understood that. You know, it's a different era. It's a different type of business now. And I don't know how much it's changed.
It's even worse.
There was so much money to go around.
Yeah.
There was so much there. You're packing houses and everything. Why is it so cutthroat? I don't understand it. It was, I mean, how much is the
greed? It's all greed.
Yeah, it's
all greed.
You know, it really got on my nerves. But I learned the business, you know. That's why I didn't like Nick, and that's why I don't listen to an Ashford and Simpson song to this day. God bless him, you know, he's gone now. I know he's gone, but it's just something that when I hear an Ashford and Simpson song, the hairs on the back of my neck go up. And I have to, like, you know, Michelle, we were in the car, and Michelle said, she'll hear a song, she'll say, all right, you know, she'll change the channel. You know, they know better, you know. But I wouldn't trade all of those experiences for nothing, man. I was on stage, on the side of the stage when we did the Richard Pryor tour. And just before he got burnt, you know, he had the fire and got in trouble. That's that album with the face of the big painting of his face. There was that album. I was standing on the side of the stage, and I made some kind of move while he was on stage. He said, hey, what was that? You know, he made something funny about somebody being on stage or something, somebody after him, and some guy came up and said, yo, man, you can't sit here. You have to go on the other side. So I said, cool. I went on the other side and sat, and when they sat on the step, I was sitting right across from Patti LaBelle. And she's like, isn't he funny? I said, you're so beautiful.
Did she say, somebody?
No, she couldn't do that. If she did, I'd have been all in, believe me. I'd have been all in. So but it was an experience. I would have never had that experience with it wasn't for Vernon Stewart.
So how does a young man from Throgs Neck in the Bronx with a large family end up in the middle of North Carolina?
Well,
tell us this whole, how did this all happen?
Remember, I was limited education. I'm in the process of taking care of that now. But my personality pretty much got me everywhere I wanted to go. I had a decent personality, I had a common sense. I know how to speak. And I became, I remember I was working temp. I was doing temp work. And I worked with Lisa and Lisa's company, Lisa Police Company at MetLife for a while. I went in there as a temp, just pitching papers. And I was going into, it was great. It was the greatest setup. And that's why I said from the start, God was with me from the start. I made a whole bunch of mistakes. I was angry with my parents. I was angry with my father. I had all of this stuff in my head. There was so much going on, and every time I could have made the wrong turn, God intervened everywhere I went. So here I am. I'm in between jobs, and I'm working as a temp with MetLife at Lisa's company, and just pitching papers in the computer section. And I used to go bring these papers into the computer room, and I was looking around. They had these big printers and and computers, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. So I asked them. I said, on my lunch hour, can I go inside and learn from these guys and what's going on in there? They said, it's your lunch hour. So I went in every day on my lunch hour. I went inside and asked these guys what was going on. Before you knew it, I wasn't pitching papers anymore. Anytime they were short in there, they asked me to come in there and work. I learned every single machine in there. And I was still a temp. And they wouldn't hire me. I learned that, and they took me down to supply. I was in charge of supplies when the supply guy was. I learned everything in there trying to get a job. And they never did hire me. But while I was going out on interviews, it was great because I had third shift from 3 to 12, which means in the mornings I could go out on job interviews. So I would go out on job interviews, and then one day, it was crazy. I was working at this place, and I asked one of the techs, if you see anything out there, can you let me know, because I need a job. And they found something for me. They said, this guy needs something, a person for this job. So I went for it. And I was working there off the books as a trial, 3 days a week, 12 hours, 4 days, 3 days a week for 12-hour shifts, 3 days on, 4 days off. It's great. And in between that, I got a call from F.W. Woolworth in the computer department. And I got the interview for that. And that other place was run by a bunch of Guyanese. It was a whole Guyanese crew of Guyanese people, darker than me, prejudiced as hell. Never understood that. Prejudice. And they were just looked down their nose at me. And when I got the interview for Woolworth and they called me and said, we want you. Just as they said that, these Guyanese people said, all right, we'll hire you. I said, no, I quit. And I went to work for Woolworth, and I was there for 13 years. Wow. And what was your question again? Oh, how I got into trucking. I was working for them when Woolworth folded and they went into Foot Locker, because they owned Foot Locker and Lady Foot Locker and all of the F.W. Woolman. The Woolworth 5 and dime closed. They went athletic, and I went for them. And just one day, I wanted to experience truck driving for some reason. I was fascinated by it. And I went to visit my friend in North Carolina. He was a truck driver, and he bought a house in North Carolina. And I wanted to try it. So I took a leave of absence. And on the day I was supposed to leave out for my training for a truck driver, that was on 9/11. And I never made it out of there. I had to I couldn't take a flight. So I took a bus ride from hell to Salt Lake City, Utah, to train for a truck driver. I would never do that ever again. I said, if I ever take a trip like this again, I'll be driving myself. It's crazy.
How long? Wait, so how did you get there?
I took a bus to Salt Lake
City. For
training.
Huh?
For training, truck driver training.
Oh, no. How long was the ride? You said from there to...
Yeah, how long was that ride? It was about 3 days.
Oh.
It's great.
And a lot of chicken, probably. The bus.
All I remember is that some drunk guy came on there and stole my Bible. I witnessed with him, and he took my Bible. He was drunk. He was going through a lot of things, and I was talking to him about God. I was talking to him about getting yourself together and what God has in store for you and what the real deal was and what was meant for man and all. And he liked what I said, and I got off the bus to get a meal. I got back, and my Bible was gone, and so was he. I said, oh, man, I guess he needed it more than... I told my mother about it. She said, I guess he needed it more than you did. So I said, oh, let that go. She got me another Bible, sent me another Bible. But I went for that. I took the training in Salt Lake City, and it was really weird, but it felt good. It felt free. You know, I can be out here on my own, making my own money. Nobody's telling me what to do. I do it at my own pace. I see the world and the whole 9 yards, but I didn't look at the big picture, you know, and didn't think about everything that was going on. Because by that time I was married, and you know, that's rough on a person, on a family when you're a truck driver. You're leaving them, you know, for long periods of time. So I went out there, I did it, and then I came back to work, and I loved it so much, I gave them my resignation. And in the computer business, you give in your resignation, they export you off the property immediately. There's no 2-week notice. They export you off the property immediately because you know too much. You know, it's a secured place. And it was nerve-wracking to do that, but I did it. And I was driving I drove for 16 years until Michelle talked me off the road.
Did you get any truck driving advice from your uncle?
Uncle Claude he said, I remember when I started, I wanted to do it. I called him first. And he said, you know, don't get into this, don't do this just to be driving and making money, make a paycheck. Get into this to start a business. Get into this to get your own. That's how you do it. You have to have that mentality. So it was in my mindset to get some trucks, you know, try to get myself a truck and learn as much as I can, get a truck, put a body in it, get another truck, work that truck, and then and when everything's good, put another body in there, then go home and wait by the phone. That's how you start the business. And you can build up from there. But then the recession hit. I got sick. A whole bunch of things went wrong there. Yeah. You know, but and like I said, you know, I had gone through so much. Like when Jasmine was born and I was living in Colchester, I had got a letter from my father. And he said, you know, he used to write me letters throughout the years, but this was the only letter that Kermit Simpson Sr. ever wrote me that was angry. He said, you know, Paul comes by and he sees me and this and that. And now you have a child, and I don't even know how to see my own grandchild, and you won't come and see me. And why don't you come and see me, this and that? And I was still angry. And I said, you know something? I'm going to go see this man. I'm living in Parkchester. I got my girl. I got a ride. I got a baby. I got a job. I got it going on. I'm going to see him, and I'm going to show him how a man takes care of his family. Still that anger. Still wanting that resentment. I said, I'm getting ready to go on vacation. I'm going to go see him. I got off that Friday, start my vacation. And I got a call Saturday morning from Paul. He was dead. I was like, what? Yeah, he was dead. I spent my vacation burying my father. All of those feelings came through me again. Mixed feelings. These feelings almost killed me. This was the time when I went through what I went through, and Kev, you probably know a little bit about it. All of the things I went through during that period of time. Drugs, you know, substance abuse. That was the beginning of that because I didn't know what to feel. I felt loss. I felt anger. You left me again. I was angry at everything and everybody, and I just wanted to be numb. I had these responsibilities, and I'm trying to be numb. And everything was just crashing in around me. I went through a real bad period of almost losing my life. I was on a path of destruction during that period of time. And if it wasn't for my upbringing and the thought of my child going through this life without me, I was supposed to be her guiding light, to show her when she hit a wall, to show her which way to go. If it wasn't for that instilled in me, I'd be dead. I'd be dead today. But it was that feeling that pulled me out of it. But I had to hit a few walls before that happened. You know, family helped me out a lot.
Tell us about, okay, so Jazz, I know very well, you know, because of when she was born and being up in, up in New York and all. But your other two, I don't really know all that well.
Right.
But I understand both of them have special talents.
Special talents. Yeah, Lauren is she has her own business right now. She does makeup, hair, eyes. She's an eye specialist. You might want to use her because she's an eye specialist. She started her own little business, and she has a lot of customers. If it wasn't for the pandemic, girl would be doing well right now. And even through the pandemic, people were trying to get to her. She has her own little shop. She has another little job. She's subsidized because of the pandemic. She's doing work for was it Social Security, or I think it's Social Security that she's doing work for, benefits. She does telemarketing for the benefits. People have questions and that. She's doing that, but she's brilliant. They're both Jehovah's Witnesses. The Nikki is a Jehovah's Witness and Lauren's a Jehovah's Witness. They have not left their teachings. They still do field service. They pioneer. They've gone. Lauren has gone to Belize a few times. They've gone to different countries to pioneer. They've dedicated their life to God. Both of them. Nicolette works at a resort. She likes to bake and stuff like that, but she does what she does just to supplement herself and keep herself going. But her life is with God, both of them. Even Jasmine has studied for a little while, but Jasmine is still doing what Jasmine wants to do, and I respect that, and I still have this one here, this little 18-year-old who keeps me young, and she's getting ready to graduate, and we're setting up everything for that. And she just got letters of acceptance to Mitchell College today. And she wants to do that as a course to go to Gaston College to become a veterinarian assistant, veterinary tech. And she's a great artist. Kayla can draw.
Mm-hmm.
She's a great artist. But she said that's going to be my side hustle. Drawing is going to be my side hustle.
She's really talented. Really.
Yeah, she's something else. I don't know where it got. Mike can draw, Paul can draw, Dylan can draw, Kayla can draw. Me and Lynette are going, what's the deal? Me and Lynette are like, come on, how come we can't do these things,
Yeah, but none of them have a story of Nick Ashford or Cuba Gooding Sr.
Imagine if I could put that in art. If I could make a comic book out of that, the jokes I can make from that, it would be amazing, But I'm very proud of my girls, and I never thought that I would get this far with all of the pain that I've been through. But my mother got me through a lot of this, and I remember coming off the road, like when I was on tour, and I came off the road, man, and it was all the sex, drugs, rock and roll, the whole 9 yards. Everything's crazy. Everything is moving so fast. And I came home. I said, "Yo, Mom, can I go to the hall with you?" She almost passed out. She said, "Sure, son, you can come with me." And I went with her just to get grounded. I tried all different types of religions and everything and stuff like that, but for some reason, this one made sense, but I still wasn't ready at that time. I was still living my crazy life. But now that I have, I can't turn back. My kids are very proud of me. I'm proud, that I've dedicated myself to God. But it's been a long ride. Some of the things that I told you or not even half of what I really went through, you know, and what I've seen and the experiences I had. Like I said, with Vernon Wayne Stewart, it was a ride and a half. You know, we did work with the Invisible Man's Band, which is actually the Burke family, the Five Stair Steps. Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. All of them guys, the whole family. I was in their house, seeing all the pictures of them at the Apollo and all of them. I've been in places and talked to people and seeing people. Yvette, I wish I could travel your road and be with you and even learn more. My passion is really there. It's just that, you know, I'm a family man and I'm here now, but my passion is really, I envy you everything that you're doing, and I think it's great what you're doing. And, you know, it's a different world, and it's not all that everybody thinks it is, but it's a great experience. You know, it's just a great experience. It's a great ride. So long as you don't lose your humanity in that, it's a great ride. You know,
The key is to stay grounded.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I would think that that's got to be hard with everything else that's coming at you.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, there's, you know, I'm sure there are people that do it, but we always hear about the ones who just can't handle it.
But the business end of it, see, throughout all of the things that I was doing, it was the business end of it that I really intrigued me. And that's when I got back with Vernon. Poor Vernon is like, you know, the guy was so talented. He was so good at what he did, and everybody wanted him. They were pulling at his coattails every time. And he started drinking. He drank a lot. That was his problem. That was his downfall, drinking. And it wasn't until later on, and he got clean. He was the only dude I ever saw get clean off of alcohol, come right out of rehab, and get a job with Carnegie Hall, and make crazy amounts of money. And he was just a brilliant dude. But then those who forget were doomed to repeat. And he forgot where he was, and he got back with the wrong crowd, and he relapsed. And during his end, because he's not with us anymore, during the end of his life, I realized something I should have told him years ago, was that he didn't have to be that headliner. That wasn't his forte. Even though the man could sing, he could play any instrument you give him. He had a book of songs. It was the songs. It was the arranging. That was his forte. He didn't need to be out there. He could have just sold his songs and been a happy man. He had a bunch of songs that were sellable. You know, there's a song he wrote called Last Song. It was perfect for Smokey Robinson during that period of time. And to this day, if you ever hear that song, Last Song, you could pull it up on YouTube. It's on YouTube. And Paul can give you the link if anybody wants to hear it. It was the perfect song. It's the song of him. And it would have been perfect for Smokey. The guy was just a brilliant songwriter. But all of the rides, all the trips and all of the stuff, it's just, I mean, I'd have to do a movie script from the time when we met him, to playing Skelsey, to playing the riding skateboards, to me and Ronnie riding our bikes, playing ball, Mike and his accident, Mike getting back up, Mommy going through this, going through that, and meeting the greatest man in her life, family reunions, great family, friends. You know, I remember Kevin coming to your house, me and Paul spending the summer at your house, and we lost your dog. It was, you know, and we couldn't find Bruno. You know, and we had to go.
Oh, that lovable collie.
Huh? Yeah.
That lovable collie.
Yeah. And Bruno was just running around looking for other dogs, and me and Paul were like, "Oh no, we lost that dog." But and the first time your father took us to the drive, he took us to see the Beatles at the drive-in, A Hard Day's Night. You know, and because I was a Beatle fan forever, hanging out with Uncle Pulley and Aunt Lizzie and them when Lynette was being born, because my mom had complications with Lynette, we had to stay with the Pulleys. And there was six, now you know it was 6 of them.
Right.
So now there's 3 more, me, Mike, and Paul. So Paul slept in the room with Joanne, Elisa and them. And we know we teased them about that. Right? And we all slept in this one big bed in the boys' room. Now it's Dougie, Mike, me, Ronnie, and Bobby in one bed. All you can hear at night was, "Give me the covers, give me some covers, give me some covers, give me some covers." You know, and it was always an argument. And Dougie was a snap. He would always snap on Lorraine. He would always snap on. He would torture Lorraine with jokes. And just Aunt Lizzie and Uncle Pulley, we wouldn't eat Aunt Lizzie's cooking at first, and we'd only eat the middle of the bread. We'd never eat the end of the bread. And Uncle Pulley said, "I'll fix that." And he took us out one time and took us to a park. Across the street from that Silver Cup bread factory.
In Queens.
And left us out there until it was late. All the people from the park were gone. It was cold. And we sit on the curb, smelling that bread. We go, let's raid the bread factory. And Michael was like, "Shut up, just move, keep moving, and keep moving." He was all the time looking at us from his friend's window. And then he finally came and got us, brought us home, and we ate everything Aunt Lizzie cooked. And not only did we eat all the bread, I had to smell it before I ate it. Loved bread from that point on. I ate every bit of it. But it was it was a great ride, man. And having family like that, I had two mothers, I had two fathers. Uncle Pulley was like, don't be in between jobs on Uncle Pulley. You need a job? He'd bring out the shoe shine box. You always do this, and shine shoes. That would bring us back. "Oh no, I'll try harder to get a job." I'm not gonna do that, Uncle Pulley. But the family reunions, your father, learning the things I've learned from your father and Uncle Nate, just how I'm being a man, that helped me too. This wandering soul that I was, I had looked up to them. I never wanted to let them down either. Every time I looked at them, every time I talked with them, you stood up straighter, you talked better, you tried to be better, and of course, Uncle Lewis, I used to hang out with Uncle Lewis all the time. He showed me the inside of a jail cell one time. He said, "This is what could happen." I said, "Not to me." And I never saw the inside of a cell after that. But I have a great family. God has blessed me with such great family, such great people. I'm staring at some of the greatest people I know in my life right now. And there are so many of us. And my wife was like, just the other day, she said, "Kind of envious of you guys. You guys, y'all do this Zooming and y'all get together and this and that. And even new people, it's just like, it's just," I said, "Well, that's us. That's the story of us. That's how we are. That's the bloodline. We don't see each other for a long time. Even before this Zoom, Kevin, I ain't seen you in a long time. But when we see each other, the conversation just picks right back up again. It's like we never left each other."
Mm-hmm.
We were blessed with this great, and I say to myself, because I believe in God and I believe in the resurrection, and I believe that there's that God will restore everything to paradise. Now, what type of paradise? I'm not sure. He's going to restore the world the way it was, and the people the way He wanted us to be, to love each other. But if paradise is doing this over, and then things that there is no murders and things, and I can make the right when I was supposed to make a right, and I can make the left when I was supposed to make a left, and my life could be better. I want every one of y'all in it again. This is my paradise. This is the paradise I want. I have the greatest family. I don't want another family. I want to see everybody again in the resurrection doing what we do, loving each other, because my family's the best.
So, Yvette, if we come back in a second life and we see Rusty Bezos, because he had an opportunity to become a multi-billionaire.
It won't be about money.
Hey, where's the tape?
It's not about the money.
I'm gonna need a little sun in my section, because you know how I roll.
You're never gonna be away from a palm tree. I know that for a fact. Whatever life you're coming back in, it will involve a palm tree.
Rusty, for the longest time, when I first moved down here, and I lived in Orlando. Yvette would always say, you know, I'm thinking about going back to New York. I'm thinking about moving back. I'm thinking about
growing.
And she would, you know, she would consider it. And then she'd go look at the beach. She's like, I ain't leaving.
You know what I would do? So I would be in New York, right? And it would be in the summer. And you know, New York in the summer, you got Grant's Tomb, you know, like you got all the outdoor concerts, you have all this energy, and you know, and I'm just like, oh, I'm moving back. I'm coming back. And all my friends would be like, okay, we're gonna find your place. You know, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna, you know, whatever. And then somebody would call me like the first New York snowstorm. And they would be like, hey, we found this brownstone. And I would be like, for what? And they're like, well, aren't you gonna move? And I said, move where? I said, what? You guys have 12 inches of snow. I'm about to go to the beach. I'm not moving back to you. What are you talking about? And they were like, don't you remember in the summertime? And I was like, I said
that? Yeah. I am tempted. I was very tempted to move to Florida. I love Florida. I used to deliver in Florida. For some strange reason, every time I delivered in Florida, though, it rained. It wasn't the sunshine state I thought it was going to be. But for the most part, I loved the ambiance of it. I loved the look of it. And I moved to North Carolina. When I moved to North Carolina, driving a truck, like I said, my friend moved here and I visited him and I thought it was great. And I wanted my daughter, I had Kayla. I said, I want her to walk on grass instead of concrete. The one thing is that I remember why God made the world round. Because he didn't want a bunch of knuckleheads hanging out in the corners. I got tired of seeing that same scene every day. I said, I want something better for her. So I got the house and I took a risk. I was making crazy money, you know, driving from Kansas City to New York back and forth. Nobody wanted to drive to New York. And I drove a big truck into Brooklyn and Queens and all kinds of things and go back. And I was making crazy money. And I showed Michelle the money. She said, the only reason you're going to leave, you're going to take me to Missouri because you got to show me the money. And I showed her the money and we moved to North Carolina and bought a starter house, a nice double wide, a nice good big old double wide. And I didn't think about what I was doing. I took her from everything she knows, all her family, my family, she's close to my family too, with a toddler, put her in a brand new house, got in the truck and went to make the money to keep it and left her there. It was just, you don't think about that when you're doing it. You're just trying to take care of your family and give them a better way of life, but it was kind of unfair. And I remember being out there for a while, and Michelle was a trooper. She's a trooper, ride and die. I picked the right one, you know, ride and die. She filled up the car full of gas and just got lost. She said, we're going to find out where everything is. Come on, Kayla, just put her in the car in the little seat and got lost until she found her way around. And I moved across the street from my childhood friend. He lived across the street. We lived right across the street from him. So his family and my family, we were close. Michelle was out there, and me and him were out there making the money. You know, until one day Michelle said, look, I didn't sign up to be a single parent. I need you home. And I read that loud and clear. And I came home. You know, it was a struggle. It wasn't that big money anymore. I had to find my way around again and do it all, you know. We've had our ups and downs and ins and outs, and we even lost that house we were in. We lost the house due to the recession, and then when I got sick, and then we lived in an apartment, this and that. Now we got another house, and now we're rebuilding to get another house, our house. We're renting now. We want our house. So we're on the verge of getting our house again. God has not left my side, not for 1 minute. He has not allowed me. I have fallen, but he has not allowed me to fail. And I'm not going to. As long as I live and breathe, I won't.
God is good. Rusty, thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome.
This is great stuff.
Yes.
Really great stuff.
Really, really good.
I learned, you know, again, one of the things we don't really get an opportunity to see is we don't get a chance to see others in their lives. You know, and you've just taken us on a journey of your life. I know you from how I know you, but you've shown me that there's a lot more to you, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you, my cousin.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'm just blessed to have you guys. I mean, who gets a chance to do this? You know, my therapy. Am I okay, Doc? Will I be okay? You know, it's been a great ride because I mean, I have great family. I mean, that young man right there is part of it. You know, Derek right there. I have the greatest nephews. You know, I'm so proud of them and the men that they're big, and that all came from Ada.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mike, Ada, it all. What a family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I thank God every day for you guys, man. Even Greg. He's gonna see that. He's gonna see that.
I'll make sure that gets in.
I love you, Greg. I love you, brother.
Right when the answering machine goes off.
Don't worry, Greg. I love you, bro. I love you.